be great for our listeners who maybe don't know you to hear a little bit about your background, your story of where you came from and what you're able to build, and then kind of bring us to where you are today.
Well, first, I've been married now for a little bit over 35 years. Sophie and I celebrate our 35th wedding anniversary October 6, 2025, just a couple months ago. We have two awesome children, Priscilla, who just turned 35, Brandon, who just turned 30. They're both married to some awesome individuals. Eddie, who and Priscilla have been married for about 11 years. Brandon and Jen, they've been married now for a few years. We have three grandchildren, Ocean, who's 10 years old, Oakley, who's 8 years old, and that's Priscilla and Eddie's children and our two grandchildren. Then Brandon and Jen have baby Lily, who's going to be 1 year old here, coming up here very soon. So we're blessed to say that everyone has health, happiness, but more so that we are, as leaders of our family, our pioneers. Sophie and I call ourselves stewards, and we're examples to our two children, their spouses, our grandchildren, because we do have a legacy plan of a 100-year legacy plan. And this all came about when I changed my generational patterns, Dan. And I'll give you a little background on me. I only have a 9th grade education. So back then that was junior high. Today that's high school. I started a company waiting on tables at a restaurant called Rusty Pelican in Key Biscayne in Miami. My wife, Sophie, was a secretary at a doctor's office. I had two jobs, waiting on tables at night, and then working for the Better Business Bureau during the day, selling memberships. And then Sophie had a day job, as I mentioned, at a doctor's office. And we started a business. We come from nothing. Sophie didn't even graduate from high school. She left at the 10th grade. And I grew up on Section 8 housing. My father had 14, 15 children, many different children with many different ladies. He had me when I was 50. My mother was 27. My mom was a waitress practically all her adult life. She's still around. My dad passed when he was 94 years old. And I grew up actually seeing a struggle, but having my family not see the struggle. They didn't realize how really poor they were, how much of a struggle they were actually front and center with. They thought it was just normal. It bothered me a little bit, but not so much until I got older. I just couldn't understand how come they couldn't see the struggle when it was clear as day for me. And that was from working around the restaurant business like my mom. At 14 years old, I had my first job at Pasquale's Italian restaurant as a takeout, and then eventually a busboy. And I used to be around individuals, i.e. customers at tables, hearing some very fascinating discussions about business, about vacation, about life, about positive outcomes. People were blossoming in life, but yet my house was struggling, but they didn't see that they were struggling. So I was on my radar. I decided to leave school at the 9th grade. Right after the 9th grade, it wasn't for me. My mom said absolutely yes. School board thought she was absolutely crazy. School was not for me. To give you a little color on that, I failed at the 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and no one fails at the 3rd grade in public system. That's what automatically pushed forward your pass. So the point I'm trying to make, I wasn't the brightest. I had a hard time focusing. So then I started a company, Sophie and I, not just me, my wife and I, with $1,700, $1,700. That was not our money. It was a loan that her incredible mother, Dixie, who's no longer with us, she passed of lung cancer some years back, loaned us $1,700. Wow. We took the $1,700, started a fintech company back then. We didn't even realize it was a fintech company. Matter of fact, there was no such word as a fintech. We started a finance company with the $1,700 while we were working at our jobs, as I mentioned. And we had no credit. Matter of fact, we had bad credit. We had no money. I was living at my in-laws' house. I had a little peewee, Priscilla at that time. And, I was really unfocused in life. And I started becoming more and more focused. And the power of being focused and what you give energy to, only one thing guarantees to happen, Dan, it grows. We took the $1,700, borrowed no money from anybody else, had no credit line, had no credit, had no investors. And we eventually started a company, and we sold that company $250 million. They bought it all cash for 30%. And I'm just fast forwarding. And then a little bit after that, we sold it again based on $600 million, all cash. They bought 19% more. And then a little bit after that, we did our final exit, Sophie and I, for $1 billion. And they bought the remaining shares. And it was all cash. There was no stock. There was no earnouts. There was nothing on paper. No seller financing. Nice and clean and straightforward deal. All 3 deals closed. The first one closed maybe within 90 days. Second one closed maybe within 5 months. The third one, the big one, closed maybe inside 60 days. And the power of opportunity in our great country is a prime example. And well, we started having a different relationship with our money. And that's how it happened. So relationship with money is very important. Money's supposed to be working for you. You're not supposed to be working for money. And again, being a waiter, being very curious about all these conversations, and I talk a lot about it in my book. It's called Upsiders, How to Upside Your Life. We started really understanding the power of compounded money. And I got fixated on a stat. 1 penny a day compounded each day for a lousy 30 days comes out to over $5 million. But the big power is one extra day, 31 days, it's over $11 million. I was staggered. And that led us to get into multifamily investing many, many years ago. This is way before we sold the first slice, second slice, and third slice. Sophie and I started in real estate, primarily rentals, the power of compounding. And we were buying in little Section 8 housing areas, duplexes, this and that. We grew it throughout the years to institutional type of assets. We have maybe about today sub $800 million of multifamily. We don't have any investors. It's all our equity. Just like when we started the company, we didn't even know how to raise money. I didn't know anybody who had money. So I was self-taught just to earn money, but more so how to compound the money, to invest it, stop flash dancing your money, stop spending and burning your money. I started becoming very mindful to the point where I trademarked something, not because it's a financial impact business. It means the world to me. One of many trademarks, non-refundable minutes. You can burn them, give them away, spend them, or invest them. I had no money, so I started investing my time, and my time started compounding. That multifamily extends me and my incredible family, and we have a family office now. We get just south of $800,000 a month between our trust and non-trust assets. That's every month. All 6 of us work in our own family office with different investments, a little bit private equity, a little VC, a lot of private credit, and a ton of multifamily assets. We just bought another one, 2025, a day before Thanksgiving. Bought a beautiful Class A building here in South Florida, hot and heavy in 26. I would love to talk about what I'm seeing and why I'm so bullish, because I've been on the sideline for about 3 years. Yeah. And the first time I got off the sideline was last year.
Yeah. Wow. Bobby, I love that story. And I hope everyone listening, you guys can hear, I love that you didn't come from a lot, Bobby. You had $1,700 borrowed from your wife's mother. No major education experience, no major gifts. What I always look at, you guys, when we're having folks on our show and when I'm listening to, I'm first thinking, what do I want in my life? Number 2 is, can I find a mentor who's already doing it, who's already there, that I can verify, yep, they're living that way. And for you guys, I talk a lot about massive passive income. And so the reason Bobby resonates with me and for Mike, and the reason we want to be working with someone like himself is, and I hope you guys can just see this in real time right here. He's at $800,000 a month every month. That's a significant amount of cash flow. That's a beautiful job of transitioning a ton of capital, some big exits, and not blowing it on, liabilities and losing it all and making it grow. So it's somebody who we can verify and get to know closely and associate with, and hopefully learn and bring value to Bobby, right? If there's anything Absolutely. We can do in the market, what can we do to bring value to Bobby? Absolutely. And how can we learn to recreate what he's already doing? And what I find is that when you find people who are doing very well, who are very successful, they love to help. They want to pass on wisdom. They want to share what's worked for them, as long as, you show up in the right way. So, and then the part that's really big too, is once you get around these mentors, ladies and gentlemen, you now have an action plan of what to go do. You're spending your time with very specific action items in a very specific way to recreate the recipe they've already created. So I love that story. I love that, how you put all that, Bobby. The question I had for you real quick, there's 2 questions. One was the power of focus. You said that when you really focus, and I want to get into the market because I know that's what our listeners want to hear too. But before we just run to that, you talk about the power of focus, and when you really focused, you were able to exponentially grow your company. Maybe you could speak a little bit more about that, because I think that's something that A, need to hear, and B, I think, hearing about the effort you guys put in, because I remember you telling, on stage, I heard you speak a couple times about recompounding and just staying the course and diligently putting it together. So number 1, that, and then I want to hear, when you took in the $1 billion, how was that for you? Was it this, absolutely. Oh my gosh moment, or how was it? How did it occur for you?
Absolutely. For me, the number 1 enemy was distractions. I was so vulnerable to shiny objects, so vulnerable to what this one is saying, what this one's making money, what's the next hot investment, what's the next trend, what's on the news, just everything. Somebody calls on the cell, text, These are called distractions. And I was really buying into these distractions. And a lot of us do that without even understanding we are being distracted. And you have a mission, you claim, Bobby, I want to create this. I want to break my generational pattern curse in my family and have a different relationship with money, but I need to focus on that. And that means I need to really disconnect and not allow these distractions to enter me. They bounce off of me. And I talk a lot about it in my book. That's how I upsided my life. I wasn't the best husband at one time because I was distracted.